December 1st, 1948. Somerton Beach. A quiet stretch of sand south of Adelaide, where the sea meets the sandstone cliffs. On this morning, a man sits slumped against the seawall, his legs extended in the sand, his head tilted slightly as if dozing. To the first passers-by, he seems merely asleep, perhaps a traveler resting after a long night. But by day's end, the world will learn he is not asleep at all. He is dead. And he carries with him one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. The man appeared ordinary, even respectable. Mid-40s perhaps, athletic build. His light-colored eyes, now frozen, would never look skyward again. He wore a clean pressed suit, brown trousers, a neatly ironed shirt, a red and blue tie. His shoes gleamed black in the sand, polished to perfection. Yet something about him was strange. He had no hat, unusual for the time. He carried no wallet, no identification, no name. The story of the Somerton Man began as an accident of circumstance, but it soon revealed the outlines of a puzzle that would haunt investigators for decades. The first to notice him were early morning beachgoers, a man walking his greyhound, a pair of young riders. Several people observed the figure, but in the casual way of strangers, they assumed he was drunk or asleep. After all, it was Adelaide, a port city with sailors and drifters, where men sometimes drank until dawn and collapsed in odd places. By evening, however, a local jeweler returned to the spot, and realization dawned. The man had not moved all day. Police were called. Constable John Lyons was among the first to respond. He found the man seated upright against the seawall, legs straight, feet crossed neatly. His head rested slightly against the stone. His right arm lay across his chest, his left loosely at his side. There were no signs of violence, no blood, no wounds. His expression, witnesses said, was almost peaceful. The body was taken to the Royal Adelaide Hospital. An autopsy was performed by Dr. John Burton Cleland. His findings startled him. The man's heart was normal, his lungs congested with blood. His stomach contained pastry and orange juice, the remnants of a final meal. But more concerning was his spleen, which was enlarged 3 times beyond normal size. His liver and stomach lining showed hemorrhages. These pointed to poisoning. And yet, no trace of any toxin was found. The coroner puzzled over this. Could it have been digitalis, a cardiac glycoside known to cause heart failure and nearly impossible to detect with 1940s testing methods? Perhaps. But certainty was impossible. In his pockets, police found curious items. An unused second-class train ticket from Adelaide to Henley Beach, a bus stub from the city to Glenelg, half a pack of chewing gum, a comb, a packet of Army Club cigarettes oddly filled with a more expensive brand, Kenzitas. These clues raised more questions than they answered. Why carry 2 brands of cigarettes? Why buy a train ticket and never use it? Most unsettling of all, every single clothing label had been cut away. The man's coat bore no tailor's mark. His shirt, trousers, tie, even his underwear, all stripped of identifying tags. This was not normal behavior, this was deliberate. Whoever he was, he seemed intent on erasing himself. The man's fingerprints were taken and circulated across Australia and internationally. His dental records were compared against missing persons. Police displayed his embalmed body publicly, hoping someone would recognize him. But no one came forward. No one claimed him. No one knew him. It was as if this man had arrived in Adelaide from nowhere, and then simply died. Adelaide in 1948 was a city in transition. The war had ended 3 years earlier, but its shadows lingered. Returning soldiers rebuilt their lives. Migrants from Europe arrived in waves, fleeing ruin and seeking new beginnings. The Cold War was stirring. Rumors of espionage and foreign agents swirled through port cities like whispers in smoke. Against this backdrop, the unknown man on Somerton Beach was more than a curiosity. He was a riddle, one that seemed to belong to the age of spies and secrets. Detective Sergeant Lionel Lean led the investigation. His team scoured Adelaide for missing persons, travelers, anyone matching the description. They examined hotels, checked shipping records, traced ticket purchases. Nothing. They found an unclaimed brown suitcase at Adelaide railway station, deposited the day before the man's death. Inside, clothes also stripped of labels, a stencil brush, screwdriver, table knife cut down into a weapon-like tool, and thread not locally sold. These were no ordinary belongings. They hinted at trade, travel, or work in engineering or military circles, and yet no identity.
Coroner Thomas Cleland held an inquest. Witnesses described seeing the man slumped at the beach. One said he raised an arm, as if in a final gesture. Toxicologists testified that poisons such as digitalis could kill without leaving a trace. The coroner's conclusion was damning. Death likely caused by poison, administration by a person unknown. But even as he closed the file, the coroner admitted the truth. The case was unsolved.
The story gripped Australia. Who was he? Why did no one claim him? Theories bloomed. Some whispered of suicide, a man broken by love. Others suspected foul play, a spy silenced with a toxin. In pubs and parlours, people argued late into the night. The unknown man of Somerton Beach became a symbol of mystery. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. A discovery that transformed the case from a medical puzzle into a coded riddle, and ensured the Somerton Man would never be forgotten. Weeks after the body was discovered, a pathologist inspecting the man's clothing made a startling find. Hidden deep in a small, secret pocket of his waistband was a scrap of paper. On it, just 2 words, Tamám Shud, Persian. Translated, "It is finished." The phrase was not handwritten. It had been torn neatly from a printed page. Police scoured booksellers and libraries across Adelaide. Eventually, they matched the fragment to the final page of a slim volume of poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. And with that discovery, the mystery deepened. The Rubaiyat was a collection of 12th century Persian verses translated into English during the Victorian era. Popular in the early 20th century, it was a book about life, fate, and death. Its philosophy bleak but romantic. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. That such a book was connected to the dead man fascinated police. Why carry this fragment? Was it a final message, a suicide note reduced to 2 words? Or was it a signal, a cipher, a calling card? The search for answers led investigators to one of the strangest coincidences of the entire case. A local man came forward. Months earlier, he had parked his car near Somerton Beach. Later, he found a copy of the Rubaiyat tossed into his back seat. Police examined the book and confirmed the torn page matched exactly. It was the source of the Tamám Shud scrap found in the man's pocket. But inside the book, investigators found something else. Scribbled faintly in pencil across the back cover were 5 lines of seemingly random letters. Beneath them, a phone number. The letters appeared as a cipher. Ugoababdi, Miliawi, Bsmi Etpia Milia. Cryptographers examined the sequence. Some thought it was a code, perhaps military, perhaps espionage. Others suggested it could be an acrostic, the initials of words in a poem or message. To this day, the code remains unsolved. And then there was the phone number. The number led to a nurse living nearby, known publicly only as Jestin. When police interviewed her, she admitted she had once owned a copy of the Rubaiyat, and that years earlier, she had given it to a man named Alf Boxall, an Australian army officer. When police showed her the Somerton man's body, her reaction was unforgettable. She turned pale, almost fainted. Yet she insisted she did not know him. Was this fear, shock, or recognition? Investigators pursued the lead. Alf Boxall was tracked down, alive and well, living in Sydney. He still had the copy of the Rubaiyat gifted to him by Jestin, its final page intact. This discovery ruled him out, but it left the nurse's connection to the dead man disturbingly unclear. Why had she reacted so strongly to seeing his body? Why had her number appeared in the mysterious book? Public speculation exploded. Adelaide was a city on the edge of a new Cold War reality. Secret military facilities dotted the region. Britain tested advanced radar technology nearby. Soviet agents were known to operate in Australia, infiltrating unions, universities, and ports. The notion that the Somerton Man was a spy gained momentum. The coded letters in the book, the untraceable poison, the erased clothing tags, the silence from authorities, it all pointed toward espionage. But other explanations emerged. Some theorized he was a rejected lover, that Tamám Shud was his poetic farewell. Perhaps he sought out Jestin and when rebuffed, ended his life near her home. Others suggested he was a criminal or a drifter, a man with secrets best left hidden. The precision of his clothing, the thread found in his suitcase not sold in Australia, hinted at foreign travel. But no ship passenger lists matched his description. No missing persons reports aligned. Whoever he was, he had erased his past so completely that he seemed to exist only in that final moment on Somerton Beach. The code has never been definitively cracked. Linguists, mathematicians, even amateur sleuths around the world have tried. Some claim the letters are an acronym for English phrases. Others argue they mask a foreign language. A few suggest it was nothing at all, the ramblings of a disturbed mind. But the neatness of the writing, the structure of the lines, suggest otherwise. It had purpose. A message, hidden in plain sight, forever locked within 5 lines of letters. Witnesses later claimed they had seen men in suits on the beach, watching silently in the days before the body was found. The rumors grew. Some said the Somerton Man was an agent silenced for knowing too much. Others whispered of lovers and betrayals. The truth was that no one knew, and as the inquest dragged on, frustration mounted. Coroner Cleland admitted defeat. "I am unable to say who the deceased was, how he died, or by what means." The Somerton Man was buried in Adelaide's West Terrace Cemetery, in a grave marked only by a headstone for the unknown man. Local residents donated flowers, and a group of ex-servicemen carried the coffin. Police officers attended, still troubled by the case that refused to yield. As the years passed, the mystery faded into legend. Theories surfaced, then vanished, but the image of the man in his polished shoes, resting against the seawall with his final message hidden in his pocket, never left the public imagination. The discovery of those 2 words transformed the case from a medical curiosity into a riddle of poetry, espionage, and death. Tamám Shud, the end. But for the Somerton Man, the end was only the beginning of decades of speculation, theories, and obsession. The Somerton Man case has spawned theories by the dozen. Each new piece of evidence has inspired speculation. Each unanswered question has been filled with conjecture. But to understand how a nameless man found dead on a beach could become the subject of worldwide debate, we must walk through the theories one by one. Some are mundane, others are fantastical. A few still stand as plausible explanations, and some seem almost too strange to be ignored. The simplest explanation is that the Somerton Man took his own life, the final meal of pastry and juice, the hidden scrap of poetry. Tamám Shud, it is finished. A farewell. Supporters of this theory point to the nurse, Justin. Perhaps he was a rejected lover who had traveled to Adelaide to win her back. Perhaps he realized he would never have her, and in despair, ended his life within sight of her home. The symbolism fits. A man who came with hope and left with nothing but the words, "the end." But this theory has holes. If he intended suicide, why strip the labels from his clothing? Why remove every mark of identity? Most suicides seek either recognition or oblivion, not both at once. And what of the poison? If it was self-administered, where was the container, the vial, the glass? None was ever found. Even in tragedy, the Somerton Man remained deliberate, precise, and deeply enigmatic. Another variation casts the story as one of doomed love. Justin was the key. During the war, she had worked as a nurse. She met soldiers, patients, perhaps foreign visitors. One of them may have fallen deeply in love with her. Was the Somerton Man this lover? Did he travel across Australia to find her, only to be spurned? There are fragments that fit. When police visited Justine, she nearly fainted at the sight of the body. Her copy of the Rubaiyat, given years earlier to Alf Boxall, showed she had shared the poetry of Tamám Shud before. Had she shared it with this man too? But again, evidence is thin. Justin never admitted knowing him. And while her shock was real, it could have been fear. Fear of being implicated in a scandal or worse. The romantic theory lingers because it feels human, intimate. But the details, the erased labels, the untraceable poison, the cipher, suggest something far larger. The coroner's report remains one of the most confounding elements of the case. The enlarged spleen, the congested organs, the absence of external wounds. Everything pointed to poisoning, yet no trace of any chemical was found. Two poisons in particular stood out: digitalis, derived from the foxglove plant, and strophanthin, extracted from African vines. Both were known to stop the heart. Both were nearly impossible to detect with the forensic tests of 1948. Could the Somerton man have been slipped such a poison in his food or drink? Could he have taken it himself? And if so, who supplied it? These substances were not common. They required knowledge, access, perhaps through medicine, perhaps through espionage. The poison theory explains the death, but not the identity. It answers how, but leaves why forever unresolved. The most enduring theory is that the Somerton man was a spy. The late 1940s were a time of shadows. The Cold War had begun. The Soviet Union and the West were engaged in battles of information, secrecy, and sabotage. Australia, though far from Europe, was a crucial front. Near Adelaide lay Woomera, a weapons testing range where Britain and Australia developed advanced rockets and radar. If the Soviets wanted to know what the Allies were building, Adelaide was the place to send an agent. The clues align: the erased clothing labels, a common spycraft technique; the thread in his suitcase, not sold in Australia, but available in Eastern Europe; the untraceable poison, perfect for an assassination; the code in the Rubaiyat, looking like a cipher; and the connection to Justine, a nurse with wartime ties to intelligence officer Alf Boxall. Some even speculate that the Somerton man and Boxall were part of rival spy networks, both connected to Justine in different ways. But espionage cuts both ways. If he was a spy, who killed him? Was he betrayed by his own, eliminated by the enemy? Or did he fail in his mission and choose to end his life with dignity, leaving behind his cryptic farewell? Tamám Shud. The code remains one of the most tantalizing pieces. Experts have debated it for decades. The letters resemble the format of acrostics, each line representing the initials of words in a phrase, poem, or song. Statistical analysis suggests it is not random. Patterns repeat. Line 2 and line 5 both read Mlaya. Coincidence or emphasis? Some claim the letters encode maritime information, fitting with naval ciphers. Others argue it could be shorthand notes from the Somerton man's own hand, a private memory aid. The Australian Navy's top cryptographers studied it in 1949 and declared it unbreakable, unless more context was provided. Without a key, the letters may forever remain silent. South Australia in 1948 was not just a coastal backwater. It was a hub of military secrets. British and Australian forces tested rockets, missiles, and radar systems here, technologies vital to the Cold War. Some researchers argue the Somerton man was connected to these operations. Perhaps an engineer, perhaps a spy sent to gather intelligence. The radiation traces found on some of his clothing have fueled this theory. Though faint, they suggest exposure to materials not common in everyday life. Could he have been involved in classified work? The idea is plausible. And yet, no military record ever revealed his presence. If he was connected, his identity was scrubbed as thoroughly as the labels from his clothing. Inevitably, stranger theories emerged. Some claim he was abducted, replaced, or silenced by forces unknown. Others suggest he was part of a love triangle gone wrong, or a criminal enforcer eliminated by rivals. In the absence of answers, imagination rushes in. UFO enthusiasts point to lights in the sky reported near Adelaide that winter. Folklorists tie the case to ancient Persian curses hidden in the Rubaiyat itself. Most of these theories lack evidence, but they show the power of mystery. How a man with no name can become a canvas for every fear and fascination of an uncertain age. In the end, each theory tells us as much about ourselves as it does about him. We crave closure, patterns, meaning. The Somerton man denies us all three. His life ended with a whisper, "It is finished." And yet in truth, nothing was finished at all. The puzzle only deepened. By the 1950s, the case was cold. Files were sealed. Witnesses aged. But the mystery never died. It lingered like a ghost in the archives, waiting for the tools of a new century. And when science finally caught up, the Somerton man stirred again. For decades, the Somerton man was little more than a cold file. The case baffled police in the 1940s and baffled amateur sleuths in the years after. But mysteries, like ghosts, have a way of resurfacing. And as technology advanced, so too did the possibility that answers might finally emerge. Every decade brought renewed fascination. Journalists re-examined the case, television specials aired, and theorists published books and articles. Each time, the same pieces of evidence were dusted off. The scrap of paper, the code, the suitcase. Each time the same questions burned anew. Who was he? How did he die? And why was he in Adelaide at all? In the age of the internet, the Somerton Man found a second life. Online forums filled with armchair detectives. Cryptographers debated the code. Genealogists speculated on his origin. What had once been a local enigma became an international obsession. The greatest breakthrough came in the 21st century. By then, forensic science had transformed. DNA could be extracted from even the most degraded remains, and genetic genealogy, the technique of building family trees from shared DNA, had cracked cold cases once thought unsolvable. In 2021, South Australia's Attorney General approved the exhumation of the Somerton Man's body. After more than 70 years, his remains were carefully lifted from their grave in Adelaide's West Terrace Cemetery. The world waited. Could the mystery finally yield to science? Months later, the breakthrough came. DNA traced the Somerton Man to a family line in Victoria. His name, Carl Webb, born in 1905, an electrical engineer and instrument maker from Melbourne. Records revealed fragments of his life. He had married, but the relationship faltered. Court documents suggested separation and bitterness. By 1947, Webb had vanished from his known addresses. His trail went cold, and then, in 1948, he appeared lifeless on Somerton Beach. The identification answered one question: who he was. But it left the others as dark as ever. Why was he in Adelaide, hundreds of miles from home? Why were the labels cut from his clothing? How did he acquire a book of Persian poetry, its last page torn and hidden in his pocket? And why did the words "it is finished" accompany his death? The DNA confirmed Carl Webb, but the mystery of the Somerton Man remained unsolved. With Webb's identity came new interpretations of old theories. Perhaps he was not a spy, but a man adrift, a failed marriage, a lost career, wandering far from home. Perhaps the scrap of poetry was indeed a suicide note, carried close as his final message. Or perhaps Webb's technical skills, his background in electrical instruments, drew him into the orbit of military projects. Could he have been recruited or silenced during the Cold War? And what of Justine? She remained linked by the phone number, by the uncanny reaction to his body. Did they meet? Did they share the rubaiyat? Was there more between them than history has revealed? Each new clue only reshaped the puzzle. None completed it. Today, Somerton Beach looks ordinary. Tourists walk the sand where the man was found. Locals jog past the seawall where he breathed his last. The world has changed immeasurably since 1948. And yet the riddle remains. The Somerton Man has become more than a case. He is a legend, a cipher, a story passed down not for what it explains, but for what it refuses to. Writers, filmmakers, and musicians have all been drawn to the mystery. Novels borrow its elements. Films echo its strange details. True crime podcasts dissect it for eager listeners. What makes the case endure is not just the unanswered questions, but the atmosphere, the polished shoes, the erased tags, the code that stares back in silence. The story feels like fiction, and yet it is true. In 2022, after the DNA breakthrough, a new plaque was placed on his grave. At last, the unknown man had a name: Carl Webb. And yet, standing there, visitors feel the paradox. To know his name is not to know his story. To give him identity is not to give him meaning. He remains the man on the beach, the man with the torn page, the man whose life ended in shadows. The Somerton Man's life ended with two words: it is finished. But his story is not finished. It lingers in files, in theories, in whispers on the wind. He is a mystery that defies conclusion, a puzzle that resists its solution. Perhaps that is why we cannot look away. Because in the Somerton Man, we see the ultimate human riddle, that we may know someone's face, their name, even their DNA, and still never truly know their story.